Hi, my relatives. It's good to see ya. Sorry we've taken a little bit of a break. It's been a wild journey of learning how to use cameras, working on different film projects, and honestly, we're having a lot of fun. But there are still stories that need to be captured. So I'm super happy to say that this is a very special episode of Our Storytellers. We actually went to Emily Carr to interview artist and filmmaker Shelley Niro. Shelley recently released her movie, Café Daughter, which she directed and co-produced. The movie is based on a true story of Dr. Lillian Eva Quan Dyck, who was growing up in Saskatchewan as a young half Nehiyaw and half Chinese person who was looking to become a doctor in the future. But she experiences a multitude of barriers, and I think that the film does a really, really excellent job of capturing the full experience of what it would have been like to pursue such a lofty goal in those times. Café Daughter is available May 7th on Amazon, Apple TV, the Cineplex Store, or YouTube. On top of releasing a film this year, Shelley's art exhibition is actually on tour as well. It's called Shelley Niro, the 500-Year Itch. For my local Vancouverites, the art exhibition is actually going to be at the Vancouver Art Gallery starting on September 21st, so mark your calendars. For our non-Vancouverites friends and family, the exhibition is actually in Hamilton until May 26th, and then it goes to Ottawa, and then it comes here to Vancouver. So get your tickets now. The links to stream Café Daughter is found in the description of wherever you're accessing this, and the links to the exhibition info are also included in the description. So please check it out. Shelley, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Here is the interview with Mohawk filmmaker and artist Shelley Niro. Hello, my relatives. How are you? Here at Our Storytellers, we care about your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which is why we want to inform you that this podcast discusses topics that may cause trauma to listeners and viewers. These subjects include mentions of Indian residential schools, assimilation, ongoing harm, colonial impacts, and much more. Services are available in English and French, and in Nehiyaw, Anishinaabe, and Inuktitut upon request. If you are experiencing any harm, no matter how big or small it's perceived to be, you can call the toll-free helpline at 1-855-242-3310 or connect to the online chat at www.hopeforwellness.ca. One last time, if you are experiencing any harm, no matter how big or small it's perceived to be, you can call the toll-free helpline at 1-855-242-3310 or connect to the online chat at www.hopeforwellness.ca. Kinanaskaman, I'm grateful for you. Your ancestors are always with you. All my relations, Riel.
Well, I've been talking about Kurosawa quite a bit. I would like to have dinner with him, just to talk to him about his filmmaking and the locations he's chosen. I was recently on a trip to Japan, and one of the places we stopped was at, do you remember Dreams? I don't know if you've seen that film.
I haven't seen Dreams.
But there's a scene in there where there's a water mill, and we went to that water mill. It was at a wasabi farm, and it was explained we're stopping at the place where a location for Dreams, and it was in that film, and I saw it, and I was like, really emotional. I was like, this is actually filmed here. So it was really nice. It was really good to see that.
How was your trip to Japan? It's Jimbo's favorite place to go.
Yeah. I loved it. It was a 2-week trip. It was places I would never have even thought of going to. So you get on a bus, and then you're taken from this town to that town to this town to different shrines, to different temples. We went to a couple castles, and we walked and walked and walked. And I swear one day I was up to 20,000 steps. And by the time I got home, my body was one big shin splint. And it took me good 3 weeks just to recover.
That's a good, I'm using that one for sure. One big shin splint. Shelley, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. My name is Riel Drury. I'm the host, if you can call me that, of Our Storytellers. I'm Nehiyaw and Soto, and Métis primarily. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for our listeners that are listening to us right now, we're actually filming this while people are being shown your new movie, Café Daughter, right now, which is just amazing. So how every podcast starts is we are going to pass over this protocol. I'm going to give you this blanket and tobacco just to open up the lines of communication and just to start a friendship between your family and mine. So it's a really long table. So pretend I'm sliding this way over to you, right? And then, yeah, please introduce yourself in your own way.
Oh, thank you very much for this really beautiful gift. I'll appreciate it every day. I'm Shelley Niro. I was born in Niagara Falls, New York in 1954, which gets, you know, when you flip through any kind of form now and it wants your birth year, it's like, where is that year? It just seems to go on forever. Anyways, I'm Mohawk from the Six Nations, Turtle Clan. Yeah, I guess that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself if you had to tell me a job title? Would it be artist? Would it be filmmaker? What would you say?
I think it's artist. It took me a long time to be comfortable with saying that, by saying I'm an artist, because I just didn't want to take on that role, because I think it's a vocation, and it's something like, it felt like a fashion statement to me for many, many years from other people saying I'm an artist, and you think, well, I don't think your art's that great, but you know, so just something that I take seriously. So I do say I'm an artist, and all the art forms that I attempt are under that umbrella of artist.
Totally. Yeah, you cross, I would say, I think it's called a medium of art quite often, but you know, all of this work has gone into producing Café Daughter, and a little bit about Café Daughter is that it's based on the true coming of age story of Dr. Lillian Eva Quan Dyck, and it's a story of a young Chinese Cree named Yvette Wong, and the film was originally, if I'm correct, was adapted from a play that was written by Kenneth T. Williams. Your hard work and your project is being shown to audiences right now. What kind of emotions does that bring up for you?
Well, making the film, like every time you'd make anything like a film, it's an emotional journey, because Ken came to me and he asked if I would be interested in directing a film version of his play. And, you know, I'm always interested in the work that women have had to go through to more or less just be taken seriously as professionals, as people. So, you know, with that invitation to direct that, to make a film version of it, it's like it was quite the serious decision. And I immediately said yes, because it's a challenge. And once I'm challenged, I just feel that I can't step away and just, you know, unless of course it was like, you know, sci-fi or special effects or something. But this story was really a story about a young girl going through life with her issues. And I just read his play and then had to decide how I could make it into a feature film.
Did you see the play live before? No?
No, I didn't see the play, but I wish I had. You know, but it's a pretty good play, because there's lots of things that I could delve into, things I could pull apart and, invent as I went on.
I've seen the film already, and I'm very proud to say I only cried twice, which is great. The story has all the ingredients, essentially. There is lateral violence, there's racism, there's, colonial impacts, the impacts of residential school. There's so many different things that are going on in this film. Is that part of what excited you to really get in there and help turn this into a film that can be viewed by so many people, is just kind of spreading the historical experience of Indigenous peoples?
Yeah, well, one of the things that was happening too is like in my other films, I kind of hinted at residential schools. I didn't want it to make it into an issue because I thought it was exploiting the stories of people that have gone to residential schools and what they had to live through. And I didn't want to take that on and say, and put it in my work. But then when they start discovering the graves of these kids at these different schools, it's like, you can't not do that now. You really have to make a point of stating these kids really what they had gone through and how they, suffered. And it was kind of a turning point in my own perspective of trying to tell these stories. What was the question?
That was pretty much it. What are the unique challenges that you face when you're creating a film like Café Daughter?
Well, it's like something I don't take it lightly, because the story of Café Daughter is based on a real person. Mm-hmm. In my own stories, I can invent stuff and I can be as creative as I want to be. But a story like Café Daughter, like, this is a real person and this is her real family and these are the real struggles she had to go through. And not only did she go through and succeed, but she went on to great heights and received great accolades in the country. And, by becoming a senator in the government and receiving the Order of Canada. So I just think that, her life is monumental and she's just a great example. And I just didn't want to make it into a fluffy story about this young girl who, her mother died and she had to learn to live with that. And, and her father too. Her father didn't die, but, the consequences of her father being a survivor in the family and how he had to learn to live with the death of his wife.
I found the character of the father very, very interesting, because I don't know how much of the film I'll get into, but essentially, like, him as a character does change over time in the film. Is how I would describe it, or at least how it came to me. So, in the father is Chinese. What kind of impacts do you want this film to have on, the Chinese community?
Well, when I first started looking at the history of the Chinese, I started looking at the the immigrants that came from China, and I believe I was looking at early 1920s, and how it was mostly men who immigrated, and they had to leave their families behind because they couldn't afford to pay for the head tax. So within the men that did come here, they formed their own family. It was like friends. And so to me, it really felt like isolation and like loneliness. And that really struck me as being such a difficult time for these men that were living through that. And so the character of Charlie, like, he carried that loneliness, and then he married a Cree woman, and together they were sort of isolated together, and they were she was isolated from her family, mainly because she married off, so she was lost her status, and it sometimes in those situations it becomes like a a game of, well, you married off, you're no longer an Indian, and her brother kind of pulls those stories from her, or directions from, he directs that towards her. And, so it just shows this family as being really isolated from both communities, and they had to learn how to survive and find happiness within that family unit.
Mm-hmm. What was the culture on set like? Is there any funny experiences or any golden moments that you can think of?
Well, when you're on set, like, you're gonna edit this out.
That's all good.
But it, like, we're in a house, and so where they're filming in a room, I was separated from the actors, and everything gets communicated through monitors in the first AD, and I find that really frustrating. So because I want to be right there with them, saying, like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that sort of thing. But then when it starts going through the AD, I don't know, something gets lost, and I just found, because I'm there more or less to hold the emotion together and sort of direct and focus the emotion. But I just found that was really distracting. And, it just became difficult because I just felt there was something in the way. And I don't know, I don't think it's a funny moment, but it's what I think about when I'm thinking about being on set with everybody. But having said that, the cast were so great. They were so wonderful. They would show up and they just loved the story. They wanted to give as much as they could and make it, they were just loving with each other. And to me, that was such a benefit. It was like, it's like they made it worth it. And we were filming too. There was, we were filming during COVID. There was a day before we were going to shoot. We were going to start shooting on a Sunday. Friday, everybody had to go for a COVID test. Saturday, we're all excited about shooting, and the man who plays Charlie comes in to the office, and he's walking towards me, and I could see him, and I'm going to walk to him, and we're going to give each other a big hug. A phone call came and said, "Shelley, you tested positive for COVID." So, so he's walking towards me, I'm walking towards him, and I just went, had to put my hands up and stop him, and I could tell he was offended by that. And my, everything in me just sank to the floor, and it's like, oh my God, we don't know what to do. So it sort of threw us into a tailspin. And then, a couple hours went by, and the next day I wrote to him and I said, "I'm sorry I didn't hug you, but I had just found out I had COVID." And we had to send everybody home for a week.
Wow.
Yeah, because, it was just bad. So, but it wasn't bad COVID.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know what it was. I think I had COVID 2 weeks before, and it was sort of the tail end of it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
How long was the shoot for?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So
yep.
Is that a pretty quick shoot? I'm honestly not as really quick. To go back to the actors for a second, I can confidently say that every actor did an amazing job in that film. Like, to the point where I was like, it was almost like refreshing, when you watch a movie. Like, I've seen every Marvel movie that's ever came out, right? Like, it was so refreshing to see new faces be in a film and completely kill it, for lack of a better word. Essentially, like, that's what they did. The person I was most impressed with was I think her name is Viola Beauvais. That's the youngest. That's the young Yvette Wong. And can you tell me, what was the experience like working with like a child actor that was that talented?
Viola was in Beans. Do you remember that film?
Mm-hmm.
And she plays the younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
And having her, she was just so loving, and just, you can see it in her face.
Yeah.
And the character that, or the boy that played as her brother, they both were the same. They had the same sparkle in their eyes.
Yeah.
And having them on set, they were just really fun. And then when we had to work, they were there. They did their job, and then they would go back to being these really fun-loving kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. What impact do you hope Café Daughter has on viewers?
Well, the first thing they said, it's really sad, and there are sad moments in that film, but I really wanted to work on the resolution of the families and the resolution of Maggie Wolf with Yvette. In the play, there was the friendship between Yvette and Maggie, but they have an argument, but nothing ever gets resolved. And I thought, well, I want to personally resolve this. So I had them become friends at the end. In the play, when Yvette's mother confronts her father about, drinking and trying to make medicine, and then she leaves and, don't come around us anymore and just leave us alone. Like, to me, that was just such a empty place to be. And I wanted to have that family really come back together again and at the end of the film and really have a joyful reunion because Yvette's graduating and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was most concerned about.
Gotcha. How do you working for those 3 weeks on shoot? Are they like 12-hour days, kind of back to back type of thing? Like, how much are you working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can only work so many hours, and then once you go overtime, then you have to start paying more and more. And it being a low budget film, we had to really pay attention to that. But working at night was the worst. It's just the pits. Because like I said, I'm usually sleeping by 8. There was one night we had to work from like 5 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was torture, So, but we really had to pay attention to our hours and try to get what we had to get, because, sometimes I'd be like, was that good? Was that good? Okay, cut. Let's go to the next. And then continuity would say, but you have to get this. You didn't get this line here. Oh, okay, let's go back and get it. So I can get a little bit clumsy in those situations, and it's like you need a group around you to say, let's get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like I said, I'm really there for the emotion, and if I can see that emotion, then I feel okay, I've done my job. But then other people say, well, yeah, you got that, but there's other things that you have to also
There's other
get.
emotions.
Yeah, there's other emotions going on here.
Oh, what, let's jump into your story now. Kind of, what was growing up like for you?
We were very poor, I think about being living on the reserve a lot, especially as I get older. It's like, can't believe that we were as poor as we were. We did have electricity, but of course there was moments where we didn't have electricity, no running water, living on dirt roads, my dad driving down this dirt road in the springtime, and there'd be ruts in the road, and he would have to drive on top of the ruts, because if you hit those ruts, game over. Our houses were, like, we had neighbors, but we weren't close to the neighbors. Halloween was the pits. You'd walk for hours and hit 5 houses. And then you'd only get apples. So it's like, that's sad.
Did anyone ever drop you off and did you ever get a ride to the city ever to get a Halloween in there?
Yeah, we did that maybe a couple times,
Yeah.
But by then it's like you're old, so it's like, yeah.
Where did you get your costumes from back in the day? Halloween costumes.
Well, you could probably buy the cheap masks and then make your own costume.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you're growing up on the res. little bit poor? Like, what are the teen years like for you?
No different. It was pretty much like the family that live on the reserve in Café Daughter. It was pretty isolated. Yeah, the bus would pick you up to go to high school, and then the bus would drop you off, and it's like, well, we're here now.
Right. Do you have brothers or sisters? Or
I have a brother and I have 3 sisters.
1 brother, 3 sisters.
Yeah.
Did you grow up staying really close to them because you were so isolated? Or?
I guess so. We're close, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Our parents passed away, and I think when your parents pass away, you kind of lose the connection of birthday parties and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. That makes total sense. So you grow up, or do you graduate high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I did.
You graduate high school. What's after that? Are you immediately jumping into art as a career, or what's that looking like?
Well, I studied music. So I took community college music in Sudbury, Ontario. I tried to learn to play the cello. I'm not a talented cellist by any means, but it's like yoga. I think if you do any kind of musical practice, it's a full body experience. Everything has to work together. Your brain, your hands, your breathing, all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like I haven't done it for years, and I sort of wished I had. Well, I didn't have time, but I think maybe I'll go back to my cello, or maybe I'll go back to yoga. I don't know, one or the other.
You jump into your studying music. You complete that as well too.
Yeah, but it's when you're 18 in college, it's like I don't think I was really studying. Yeah. But it was, it's you get away from home, and you think, oh, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I finished college, and then got married, had kids, and then about I was in my 30s, and I decided I'm going to go back to college. I went to OCA. OCA is now known as OCAD-U.
Okay.
But I had been painting and drawing and doing all that stuff, and kind of throwing stuff out too. And then confidence is it's a hard ingredient to achieve. But I always think that people can do whatever they want. If you have confidence, you can do anything. If you don't have confidence, you're not going to do anything. So I try to tell people, just forget about you're not good enough. You're never going to be good enough, But half the journey is just doing it. Just do it, And once you start doing it, you're going to get better at it. Doesn't matter what you're doing, It's just it makes sense that you start getting better. But I want to go back to my cello story. I had a great cello teacher. He was from Czechoslovakia, and he knew that I would never achieve anything in the cello, but he was more like visiting a psychiatrist. Not that I've ever visited a psychiatrist, but we'd spend an hour, go through our scales, go through, my little bits of music that I was studying for the work. And he would instruct me on how to hold the bow, what kind of pressure to put on it, and how to make a really great sound. And because up to that point, we're like, my cello playing sounded like saxophone. But by the time the lesson ended, he would say, okay, we're going to play this music now. And he goes, and now you're going to make the most beautiful sound. Holy smokes. And I would. I would always make a great sound by the end of the lesson. And I don't know, it stuck with me. And I think anytime now I do something, I think, okay, you're going to make not a great sound, but you're quite capable of making as great a piece as you possibly can, and it's all in your head, so it's like you're breathing in this air and letting your muscles take over, and then it's like, oh, that was really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you think about that teacher when you were working with the character for like the doctor?
Well, I think about him a lot.
Yeah.
I think about him every time I do something, and it's well, maybe not everything. Not everything's beautiful. But it's a reminder that you can make things, doesn't matter what you're making, if you have it in your mind that you're going to make something beautiful and really concentrate and focus on it, it might be beautiful, So, yeah, when I'm thinking, like that goes with anything, script writing, because sometimes I'll be script writing and I think, well, this is pretty flat, or this is, just so boring or whatever. And then you just have to give yourself a little shake and really try to accomplish something a little bit better than the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're a known artist now, but you've produced, I think, 3 films now, maybe 4.
This is the third feature.
This is the third feature. When you were producing or directing your first film, what was that experience like for you? Were you having like any of those imposter syndrome thoughts as you're in there, or are you just kind of taking that approach where you're like, you know what? No, confidence is key. I'm here to deliver.
Yeah. When I was making that first film, that was Kissed by Lightning, I had a great story editor, and he was Ken Chubb, and he wouldn't tell me how to change the story. He would just say, well, in this part here, it's, like this character, I forget what he would say, but he would just say, you have to bring something in to make it more obvious to the audience, the direction that you want to take them. And so I would always try, and it's not that he influenced the story by any means, but he would just try to plant little seeds to make the story so much richer, So I just think about people who really want to, I don't know how to say it, like give me direction, but not really give me direction, because it has to come from me. They don't want to say, okay, now we're going to have a truck and you're going to put people in a truck and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Hi, my relatives. Sorry for interrupting the podcast quickly here, but I just wanted to let you know that we have a vision of taking the podcast to guests. We think it would be a lot easier on guests if we did it that way. So in order to do that, we need to purchase some equipment. And in order to purchase some equipment, we need some funds. So please subscribe to the Our Storytellers Patreon page for $20 a month. When you subscribe, you'll be able to tell us what kind of behind-the-scenes content you want to see, or whether it's just wellness of how we're running our storytellers and working our jobs at the same time. I don't know. We're open to anything. You let us know by subscribing to our Patreon page. The link is found in the description of wherever you're accessing this podcast. Now, back to the podcast. So, that was Kissed by Lightning.
I can tell you a story about Kissed by Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've seen Kissed by Lightning.
I haven't.
Okay, there's a scene in they're in the restaurant, and the character of Mavis Dogblood and her boyfriend Bug are in New York State, and they're in a restaurant where they're starting to feel like there's some racist overtones happening. And the way I had written it, Mavis picks up a coffee cup, and she throws it, and probably swears or something. And I didn't like that. But I put it in there because I thought it's like a filler. We have to feel that she's so pissed off she's going to do something kind of violent. And I had my dog. It was really super cold that day, so I put the leash on her, and we went out for a walk. And while I was out there walking her, I had two memories. And one was being at a Pentecostal church on the reserve, and this van full of young black men drove in. And, you know, living on the reserve and having a van full of young black boys and men come in, it's like, wow, look at those guys, because their hair was like, you know, out to here, and they had the combs in their hair. And they, you know, they were singing, so they were just like so full of energy, and it's like, wow, they were pretty amazing. And the other memory was being at the NMAI, the National Museum of the American Indian, and I had an installation there. And again, it was high school kids, and they came in and they were asking me questions. And one of them, who was a young black man, said, "Are you angry?" And I said, Why am I angry? Like, what? Mm-hmm. He said, are you angry about the American history that like Mohawks had to live through? And it kind of really threw me, because it's like I never expected that kind of question in that kind of environment. And I said, at that time, I said, no, I'm not angry, but when I start looking at my work, I think, yeah, I am angry, because it all comes through in the work. So I went back and I wrote the scene where they're sitting in the restaurant, and in comes a quartet of black singers going to a Martin Luther King celebration. And they can see these two people sitting there, and they start asking them, like, where are you from? Are you from the Philippines? Are you from Japan? Like, you know, what's your heritage? And they said, oh, we're Mohawk. And they said, well, you're from here. And they said, yeah, we're from here. And they said, oh, well, you're right where you should be, you know. And that's kind of my favorite scene, because it just kind of came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And they ended up singing to this couple that was sitting there. But it's like weird. I don't know. Sometimes you get ideas, and it's like, you know, that kind of gels in some way.
Yeah, totally. I've just been reading up on this, and just a general curiosity of myself. But like, where do you think those creative ideas come from?
The creative ideas, like, it always surprises me when I get a good idea. Mm-hmm. And this sounds really kind of, you know, people are going to say, oh yeah, sure. But I think about ancestors a lot, and I imagine them being around me quite a bit, you know. And then sometimes ideas will come to me, and I can feel the hair on my hands stand up, and I go, where'd that idea come from? Mm-hmm. So it sounds kind of weird, I know.
That's not weird.
It just sounds like, yeah.
You're talking to the right people saying that right now.
I don't tell people that at all. So what I do tell people, it's like, I'm going to have to start working on the text on that one.
No, I say it all the time. I mean, like, it's like some people have a muse. Well, like, we've got our families and our ancestors behind us, essentially holding us up. So that's what I think as artists. You mentioned the confidence thing. Is there any other piece of advice you would give young Indigenous artists or even filmmakers?
I think, you know, like, I'm from the old class of filmmakers and artists, because we really had no mentors, you know. We had nobody to say, go there and do that or whatever. I just think that if you're an artist or a filmmaker or anybody who wants to be creative, I think you just got to just do it, you know. Even like anything, just go ahead and start. You have to fail a lot, and you have to keep trying, because I know people who do try and they fail and they stop. They just quit. And I think, you know, there was potential there, and you could see it. You could see that they were kind of boiling, but then they weren't successful in their vision, and they get dismayed by that, and they don't keep going. And I think it's just really sad, because you can just keep going. I don't care what you're doing, beadwork, drawing, anything, poetry.
Oh yeah. The Yvette says a prayer in the movie Café Daughter, and it was really awesome to see. Like, it's set in Saskatchewan, where my family's from. Is Manitoba. It's like not too. We could probably wave to where you were filming, probably, honestly. And like when you were just talking, a word that came to me is like the word for, keep on going, never stop, or don't stop till you tried your hardest, is akimeamuk in Nehiyaw. So like that's like a kind of word, I hold on to those words a lot for inspiration too when we're working. But what do you want, like, Indigenous peoples in the next generation, so in our generation right now, to start actioning today?
Well, I've used this word a couple times today, and I think it's empathy. I think we really have to look out for each other and look out for even ourselves. And it's like trying to form. I think friendship is one of the things that we have to really work on, because especially in the day and age where there's a lot of competition and people want to succeed at any cost. I think it's that nothing compares to just having a great community and people who will be there for you. And I think we just have to work that way.
What's an experience or a moment that shaped you? Breakfast this morning?
Not really. Let me think. I don't know.
We can skip too.
Okay, I can't
skip.
I have too many of those.
You have too many of those. Every single failure.
Yeah.
In the art. I mean, your work spans across various mediums, whether it's film, photography, visual art. Do you have any medium that you want to pursue moving forward? Or
film is so great. Every time I do a film, it's like it's different. It's a new learning experience. And so the cameras are different. Protocol on set is different. The language that people are expecting you to use is different, so then it's like it's a learning curve every time.
What's a film word you've learned?
A film worth?
A film word. The
film
language
word.
Is different now. What's a film word?
Quiet on the set. I don't know. No. What was the other question I couldn't answer? You said, and I said
What's a moment that shaped you?
Well, today I had a moment that shaped me, and I'm sort of still stunned and kind of happy about it. I went to the Chinese museum. I walked there from my hotel. So I got there, and then coming back, I didn't do the same route, and I got lost. And I didn't know where I was. I was looking at my Google Maps, couldn't figure it out. So there was this young man going to cross the street, and I said, can you tell me where Hamilton Street is? And he was Japanese, and he had his phone, and he's looking, and I couldn't read his maps because it was all in Japanese. And he said, I'll take you there. He says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Hamilton and Robson. He goes, I'll take you there. I said, what? And yeah, he took me. It was like a 15-minute walk. I said, I'm not taking you away from whatever you're doing. He goes, no. And I just thought, holy smokes. That never happens. You know, people who will stop what they're doing and take me to where I wanted to go. And I just thought that was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah, so I don't know. I was kind of floored by that.
It seems like you really value kindness and empathy.
Yeah. It was a real gift, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's next for you? Next film?
Well, I'm working on a script, but I don't want to talk about it because it's,
It's bad luck.
Yeah.
Will you come back on later to talk about it?
I will. I
will. We're just wrapping up here. A couple last questions here for you. What does ceremony mean to you?
I'm not a traditional Mohawk. I don't really do ceremony in that way, but every day is a ceremony. Getting up, having my coffee, loving the day, be it sunshine or rain, I don't care, I think it's just like, as I'm getting older too, it's like just incredible knowing that we're here. We can do whatever we want. Well, within certain limits, but I think it's about trying to be happy. I know that sounds really corny, but it's just trying to find that ceremony of happiness, and if you can do it if you can bring a little bit of happiness to somebody else, it's extraordinary. Yeah.
You're on a retrospective tour right now as well. How has that been for you? What kind of emotions has that brought up for you?
The Art Gallery of Hamilton, the National Gallery of Canada, and the National Museum of the American Indian in New York, they worked on the retrospective for 7 years, and they discussed what they wanted to bring. They talked about the categories that the retrospective would be in. So there's different, I forget, one is matriarchy, relationships, land, and something else. But, to have people discuss my work that they wanted to put in this retrospective, it's really humbling, and it's like super emotional, because I find that when I started looking at the work, because they also want like artist statements to go with the work. Like some of the work is 40 years old. So I start pulling the stuff out, start looking at it, start remembering the kind of, what do we call it, conditions it was made in. It's really emotional because it's a diary of your life. And so seeing it like that, it's like I really had to like contain myself, control myself, and because I think, wow, that's that's pretty what's the word? I don't know. It just sort of opened up that Pandora's box of memory.
Yeah. Oh, what is the word when you're looking back on something? Oh,
what the word?
I want to say melancholic, but that's not it.
Yeah, it's
that's
not nostalgia. It's not melancholy.
Yeah. All right, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just think, okay. Yeah, I made the work. Because my philosophy is you make the work, you send it out the door, and then I always think that because people are saying, well, we want to get it right, when we're talking about your work. But I think once it's gone, then it's whatever their feelings about the work, how they interpret the work, it kind of comes through them. And it usually doesn't, I'm not bothered by people's interpretation of what I do, because it's, once I can't be there all the time explaining it. So when I have to start re-explaining the work to people, then it's like, oh yeah, that now I remember why I made it.
Well, it's been such an honor to have you here, and I appreciate everything that you and the Stories First team have done for us, and I just appreciate having the time to sit here and connect and listen. So I'm grateful, and thank you so much for coming on Our Storytellers.
Thank you, Riel. Thank you, Ryan.
Hi, my relatives. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast with Shelley Niro. I had a great time. I really enjoyed the conversation. We hope that you did as well. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify. Share the podcast. Everything helps. And comment, because we love to hear what you think. But we hope you have a great week. And we'll see you soon. All my relations, Riel.